Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, happy Friday, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us. Oh, boy, it's just a big day in the world of news, I guess you could say. You know, normally this would be a time where I'd be running down everything that we got going on in the show, but I'm going to do that throughout the show, and I want to get right to the biggest news really around the world. And I will say in a few minutes here, we're going to be joined by a veteran. He's a radio host at KFI, and he is saying that this general that Donald Trump ordered to kill is the man responsible for killing some of his friends. So we'll be discussing that with KFI's very own Brian Suits coming up here in just a few minutes. General Qassem Soleimani, if you have not heard the news, did I call him salami? It's probably because I'm hungry. I didn't eat breakfast this morning. Qassem Soleimani has been killed. This is a known terrorist, a man who harbored terrorists, a man who's responsible for, at minimum, hundreds of Americans dying. Make no mistake about it. Nobody's going to argue that. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. This was a horrible guy, a murderer, and there's no question I don't feel any sorrow for him. And I'm glad he's dead, and I hope he suffered a very painful death. But with that being said, why did this happen, and is it good for Americans in the long run? Will it save American lives? I say no. I say it won't save American lives in the long run. This is not Osama bin Laden we are talking about here. It's the opposite of that. Now, of course, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is saying that this man, Qassem Soleimani, was planning an attack to kill Americans. Now, we don't have proof of that, and there are some people out there that are saying that this is weapons of mass destruction all over again, an excuse to start another war. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. I want to certainly find out the answers to that. I don't know the answers to that. But here's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in his own words describing the attack and why it happened.
John, I can't talk too much about the nature of the threats, but the American people should know that President Trump's decision to remove Qassem Soleimani from the battlefield saved American lives. There's no doubt about that. He was actively plotting in the region to take actions, a big action as he described it, that would have put dozens, if not hundreds, of American lives at risk.
Okay, we don't know the answer to that yet, and even Pompeo doesn't know the answer to that. We probably won't know the answer to that for years and years to come if this actually does save American lives. Doesn't mean I'm not happy and we shouldn't be rejoicing in the fact that this guy is dead, but is it good for America in the long run? Remember, Donald Trump is the guy that said back in 2011 on Twitter that in order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. These are his words. He said, now that Obama's poll numbers are in tailspin, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran. He is desperate. He also said, now that Obama's poll numbers are bad, this is what he's going to be doing. He's going to be starting a new war. He said, don't let Obama play the Iran card in order to start a war in order to get elected. Be careful, Republicans. We're going to play a little bit more of that audio for you later. But it is an absolute complete contradiction. What is the difference? What is the difference? And I want to play you a really, really interesting soundbite from Tulsi Gabbard. Remember, Gabbard, with all due respect to Tulsi Gabbard, she's probably a Republican, okay? She has defended Donald Trump a lot more than she has gone after him. But guess what? Tulsi Gabbard, somebody who you have to respect as at least a veteran who risked her life for this country, here's what she's saying about this attack.
This was very clearly an act of war by this president without any kind of authorization or declaration of war from Congress, clearly violating the Constitution. It further escalates this tit for tat that's going on and on and on, will elicit a very serious response from Iran and pushing us deeper and deeper into this quagmire. And it really begs the question, for what? What are we trying to accomplish? What is the end state and the goal here?
Yeah, and do we just think that Iran okay, we're just going to support Americans. Now, no, they're going to get a new leader. They're going to get somebody to fill that position. And their thoughts on Americans and the way they do things in that country, it's not going to change. By the way, the government, Pompeo, putting out warnings yesterday saying if you are an American and you are in that country, get the hell out of there. And that's probably pretty good advice. And then we had an interesting interaction this morning, debate, argument, whatever you want to call it. I usually never agree with Geraldo Rivera. I do agree with him at times when it comes to immigration, and I agree with him here. He got into it with Brian Kilmeade. Brian Kilmeade, of course, the show before ours, which airs, I believe, 6 to 9 a.m. And Kilmeade came on our show a few weeks ago promoting his book. He's a nice guy. I don't always agree with him, but this is a really interesting interaction here. So this is Geraldo Rivera and Brian Kilmeade on Fox and Friends talking about this attack this morning.
Your arrogance is exactly what's wrong with the region.
My arrogance, not agreeing with you is arrogant?
You think because,
not agreeing with you is arrogant?
You're not a frontline fighter that has to go back into Iraq. Again, you want Americans
not the
back in
contractor
Iraq?
who just got killed because
you want
base.
Americans back in Iraq?
Right. Look, we have 5,400 there. You want them to be victims?
I was there when they were getting killed,
what does
Brian.
that
I was there when they were getting killed
What does
5,
that
6,
mean?
7
What
a day.
does that mean?
Is that what we want again?
They were responsible for killing Americans. They supported the whole insurgency.
Why did we kill?
They supported the whole insurgency. That's okay?
This is a fraught decision that will have implications far beyond the celebratory moment of taking out the terrorists.
I never thought I would say this. Geraldo is absolutely 100% right. And by the way, all due respect to Brian Kilmeade, look, I didn't serve, but I have a lot more thought put in to the soldiers that are probably going to be put in harm's way. That is my concern. Americans and American soldiers put in harm's way. Brian Kilmeade isn't going to be going overseas. He's not going to be sending his kids overseas. Donald Trump isn't sending his kids overseas. Many of the politicians that run this country, their kids aren't serving. That is where I have the problem here. And I want to read something from Michael Avenatti, who tweeted this out this morning, which I kind of agree with, and you could call it a conspiracy theory. I'm not about to do that. Here's what Michael Avenatti said about this. He said, I'm not buying that General Soleimani was plotting to kill thousands of Americans, and that's why he was killed. I believe it's completely fabricated, just like the weapons of mass destruction the Iraq claim, but worse. This administration lies at every turn about everything. Why should we believe them now? Fair point. So what better person to have on the line with us right now than a man who served himself? He certainly is a hero. He does a radio show out there at KFI, and we're very happy to have him on the program right now. Brian Suits joining us. Brian, thank you so much for being on with us. How are you?
Hey, it's good to be back.
Appreciate it, Brian. Okay, so I want to play you a little bit of audio first, and I want you to respond to this. This is Donald Trump, I believe it is back in 2012, talking about Barack Obama and talking about possibly starting a new war. Have a listen to this.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran. Now, I'm more militant and more militaristic than the president. I believe in strength. But to start a war in order to get elected, and I believe that's going to happen, would be an outrage.
All right, Brian, what's the difference between what he stated there and what's going on now?
Well, it turned out to be wrong. Obama didn't start a war with Iran, so there's that. But I mean, I am a little bemused all night long and this morning watching MSNBC, watching all the experts who are apparently unaware that we have been at war with Iran since 2004 in a kinetic way, and since 1979. I mean, it just because one side thinks it's in a war and the other side does not, doesn't not make it a war. They have been at war with us since the revolution, and from 2004 on, they were wounding me and they were killing my friends with a new breed of roadside bomb. And frankly, this guy Qassem Soleimani should have been dead in 2006. Bush didn't do it.
Right.
Obama didn't do it, and his continued existence is a guarantee that Americans would continue to die. I mean,
Brian,
I'm surprised he didn't do it a year ago. I don't know.
And Brian, listen, I appreciate that, and I don't disagree with what you said. And if you missed what I said when I started the program, I said make no mistake about it. Democrats and Republicans have to all agree on this one. This guy, Qassem Soleimani, was a terrorist. He was responsible for many American deaths. He was an awful human being, a murderer, and there's no question none of us should feel sympathy for the the fact that this man died, and I hope he died a very painful death. With that being said, I've heard, my understanding is this man is responsible for killing some of your comrades. I do want you to talk about that. I do think that's very important.
You know what? One of the most ironic things is 2 years ago during the liberation of Mosul, Qassem Soleimani personally sent targets to the U.S. Air Force, to the targeting cell, to the U.S. Air Force, as we were all fighting ISIS, because the Iranians, insinuated themselves into Iraq in 2014 because we did not. And the Iraqis said, well, the devil we know, let's get them over here. So the Iranians came in. Soleimani was coordinating with the U.S. Air Force for close air support. And but whatever, sucks to be him. But for people who don't know, the Quds Force is the external terror branch of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, who are the power, the parallel power structure, the state within a state in Iran. And as simple roadside bombs weren't being as effective as they were in the first year of the Iraq occupation, the Revolutionary Guard Corps went to a 60-year-old technology, and that is what's called a shaped charge, which concentrates an explosion and a bolt of molten copper into an aimable like laser sort of a thing. So we started getting these in 2004, we started getting these new things called explosive formed penetrator roadside bombs. And I don't want to get into acronyms, but anyway, it's called an EFP, understandably. And we were not prepared for it. We didn't have up-armored Humvees all over the place, and even the ones that were up-armored were still getting penetrated by these. The effect on a crew in a Humvee of a well-aimed EFP it literally looked like Kylo Ren's lightsaber cut people apart. It was stunning. It was shocking, and we weren't we had to countermeasure it. It took us a couple of years to get a better armored car, but they made them in Iran. They transported them into Iraq, and Iranians did that. And I'm not implicating anybody, but I know of an incident.
No, and I understand. And I appreciate your perspective. And I listen, I understand where you're coming from. I think the big question is this good for America in the long run? I want to read you a few tweets from people that you might disagree with on this one. Let's start with General Wesley Clark, who said, quote, "This is not like taking out al-Qaeda terrorist Osama bin Laden. This is a significant escalation of our struggle with Iran." He said, "In taking down a military leader of a sovereign state, we've gone far beyond a proportional response to the Iranian threats of our embassy, placed greater stress on the friendly Iraqi government, and virtually guaranteed forceful and further escalation attacks by Iraq." Nancy Pelosi says, "American leaders' highest priority is to protect Americans' lives and interests, but we cannot put the lives of American service members, diplomats, and others furthers at risk by engaging in provocative and disproportionate actions." I want to get your response to that as someone who has served. What do you make of those statements, and do you think it bears any relevance to what took place last night?
Those two statements by General Clark and the Speaker are clear evidence that they're unaware of something that I have yet to see on the American media today, and that is that Qassem Soleimani was not revered within his own government. He was a threat to the government. He was an eternal threat. He had the loyalty of the most well-equipped, well-trained, best-armed guys in Iran. That was a threat to the Supreme Council. They're not going to say it out loud. They're going to check the box, and of course it's Friday, so they're going to cry and say death to America. There will be some pro forma check-the-box attacks, but the fact of the matter is he wasn't very well liked within his own government. And then, by the way, you're damn right the Iraqis knew we were going to do this. There's a reason we only told a couple of the leaders, because they wanted him dead too. If we had had a briefing with the Iraqi military, he would never have landed. So yes, the Iraqi government that matters knew this. They want him out. Remember those protests last month? All those young people in Baghdad asking for a less corrupt government and get the Iranians out. And the people who mowed them down were these militias that are funded, trained, and equipped by the Iranian government. So the Iranians are not popular. Soleimani gave that order. He's not popular in Iraq. It's time for them to go. But we're not putting any friendship with Iraq at risk. They knew damn well what we were going to do, and they greenlit it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Soleimani was actually considered, in just this year, he was added to the terrorist list he was considered a terrorist, a threat to the United States of America.
Yeah, the Quds Force was put on the list a long time ago. His little brother runs the prisons in Iran. He survived. He's still alive. He's still running those places of rehabilitation and job skills. He was a terrorist. He was also a billionaire, and the people who worked near him were 100 millionaires, and that's part of the reason he was resented by a lot of the Iranian people, was because he sucked the oxygen and money out of progress and governance in the name of guarding a revolution, because he just claimed that any day now America was going to invade. It's the old dictator, North Korea trick, is just tell people that any minute now they're going to be invaded. And there will be violence, but I'm not going to be surprised if the Iranians very quietly are talking to Switzerland to pass on to Pompeo that can we call it even now? Can we now? Okay, you got him. Can we clean the slate and start over now?
Well, obviously, I hope you're right. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Brian Suits. He is a veteran, also a host over there at KFI Radio, and he personally knows people that have died at the hands of Soleimani. So the question here now is, Brian, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is this good or bad for America, short-term, long-term, weeks, months, years? And from what I'm hearing from what you are telling me is that you don't believe this is going to start a war. You don't believe this is going to put American soldiers at risk. You don't, in the long run, you think this is saving American lives and not, I guess you could say, killing more Americans. Is that what I'm getting from your perspective?
I think in the short term, there's risk for the Americans that are downrange. We're sending a brigade of the 82nd Airborne there, and they're going to play, goalie for the rocket team. But we have means of shooting the guys that are shooting the rockets. If they try that, I think it'll be symbolic. There's not going to be a campaign of rockets, hitting American bases. And it is customary in war to kill as many of the enemy as possible. And the fear of backlash of killing a leader is really, really silly. I'd like to remind people in World War II, the height of the Pacific War, we assassinated Yamamoto. We intercepted and decoded a radio message. We didn't want them to figure out that we decoded the message. We shot down Yamamoto, and American admirals were, a little taken aback by the perceived dishonor of it. But in the long run, he's like the brain bug in Starship Troopers. This guy was so charismatic, and so is Soleimani. And then the other thing is, well, what about the next guy? We don't know about the next guy. Soleimani made sure that the second in charge was not more dynamic, smart, brilliant, or charismatic than he was. That's the opposite of how that kind of power structure works. The vice Soleimani, was not the Mike Shanahan. To come on board.
Yep. Let me explain to you, Brian, though, somebody like me, why I'm skeptical. And look, I'm not a hero like you. I didn't serve this country, but I still have my opinions, and here's why, and I want to explain those to you. This is why I'm skeptical. First of all, I'm going to start with the war in Iraq after 9/11. We found Saddam Hussein with a candy bar and like a pellet gun in a hole. He was not a threat to this country. We were told that there were weapons of mass destruction. Those weapons of mass destruction were never found. Look, there were both many Democrats and Republicans that voted for that war. It was an enormous mistake. Hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis died. Thousands of American soldiers died. I say, for what? We never went after Yasser Arafat for years, a known terrorist, and I can go on and on. It took us forever to capture Osama bin Laden. He was finally captured. This is why I was skeptical. And there are some people on social media that are saying they believe this stuff that Pompeo is talking about, that this man was an imminent threat to Americans, could be fabricated, and this is another weapons of mass destruction disaster. What do you say to that? I'm just telling you that's why I'm skeptical.
Well, it's because we do know Soleimani's track record. He admits to it. He wrote it in his bio. He is an arch villain. This isn't made up, that this guy is a bad guy. And I think you'll find that the only capturing was bin Laden's head captured a bullet. We didn't actually capture him. But no, this is the real deal. It's in our interest to kill this guy. He is an enemy. And then I heard Joe Scarborough this morning say a sovereign leader of a sovereign nation. He was in Baghdad. Mm-hmm. He's an Iranian who's disrupting this democracy that we've established, because that's a bigger threat to them than atomic bombs.
And from what I understand, he was actually meeting up with the ringleaders of the bombing of the embassy.
Yeah, he was going to coordinate more, more effective action than standing there chanting and throwing rocks.
Well, if that's true, let me be very clear on this. If you're one of those parents out there that has a son or a daughter that could be going overseas, that could be put in harm's way. Hold on, let me finish. Yeah, exactly. So I'm talking about people like you and your parents, JD. We deserve to know. The parents deserve to know what this man was planning to do to attack Americans. Pompeo, I know that he's going to say a lot of this stuff is declassified and he's not going to give out all the information. I understand that. But we need to know. This can't just be, well, he was planning an attack on Americans, so we had to do this. No, we need more information than that if we're going to put our soldiers in harm's way. That's just my take.
But that's his job description. That's Soleimani's job description. That's all you need to know. What was his job? Well, it was to do that. Of course, if he woke up this morning, he was planning to further attacks and to make the Americans leave Iraq.
But don't we need specifics of what exactly he was?
No, you don't. Maybe 20 years from now in the book, you don't need it right now. There's actionable intelligence that we're dealing with right now.
I mean, Brian, even CNN said that there's legitimate intel that attacks were coming, and
I haven't seen it.
And Soleimani was putting together attacks in the United States.
All right, well, I'm just saying, listen, I don't have any kids, but if I did, and if I heard Pompeo say, well, he was planning an attack and my kid had to go overseas and his or her lives were put at risk, I think I'd want a little bit more information that, listen, what you said is right. And I said it to start the show. We all know this guy was a bad guy. We all know he harbored terrorists. We all know he killed Americans. I just want to know specifically why they did this. Not because Donald Trump called for it to happen. I want to know the specifics. What was he planning? I think that's a fair question to ask. I really do.
Well, further attacks in the green zone. That's it's that broad. That's exactly why he was back in Iraq.
I hope you're right, and I hope that comes out. And I obviously we are all rooting for the same thing. We are rooting for, we don't want more Americans to die, right? We wanted this guy out, but is it the right thing for America? I guess time will tell. I guess that's the only way we're going to know for sure, right? Right, Brian?
I for one toasted him last night with my daughter with Bailey's and a shot of vodka because of Qassem Soleimani.
Of course,
I have free parking for life, and my daughter will go to UCLA tuition free.
Well, we are certainly glad to hear that, and you certainly are a hero yourself, Brian, serving this country honorably, and we salute people like you every day. Brian Suits, thank you so much for joining us. You do a great job and a great show over there at KFI. Always appreciate your perspective, my friend, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Anytime, except today between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. when I'm in for Gary and Shannon on KFI AM 640.
I think that's fair. We won't bother you then, Brian. Thanks for coming on, my man. I really do appreciate it. All right.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Even though I might disagree with him on some of his points, and I think calling somebody a bad guy and knowing that somebody wants to kill Americans, that doesn't necessarily mean that this was the right decision to make. And again,
I mean, Brian, why was he in Baghdad? Why was he in Baghdad meeting with the people that were involved in the attack on the U.S. Embassy, which is is what this was totally based on?
Well, I ask you these questions, and then we're going to go to break.
That's fine.
Why is it that Donald Trump back in 2011 said in order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran? Why is it that Donald Trump in 2012 said now that Obama's poll numbers are tailspinning, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran?
I'll tell you this.
He is desperate, and then we'll have to discuss that. Right. Go ahead.
Trump's numbers are not tail spinning.
Okay, but you get my point.
He's not trying to. I mean, I think that he is legitimately taking out a threat to the United States. And Suits just said it himself. He said several of his friends died because of Soleimani.
We know hundreds of people died. I've said that over and over again. We know he was a murderous, somewhat of a dictator, I guess you could say. That's not in question. Both Democrats and Republicans agree with what you were saying, JD. What I'm saying is back in 2011, 2012, it was Donald Trump who said that Obama was trying to start a war to get reelected. So how is this any different? It's not different.
It's totally different.
No, it's not.
He's not trying to start a war to get reelected.
You don't know that. You don't know
Neither
that.
do you.
You don't know. No, you're right. But I think it's a fair question.
You can't say that it's not different if you don't know that, Brian.
Donald Trump said that in 2011. I'm using his own words against him.
You can't say that it's not different. If you don't know that he's trying to start a war, then you can't say that it's the exact same thing as what he accused Obama of doing.
Then don't go after me. Go after your president.
I'm just saying, I don't think, considering this guy if he didn't have a track record, if he didn't have a serious track record, if this...
All right, we got to take a break. I want to get you to continue when we come back. Number to call, 702-257-5396. Again, that number, 257-5396. Continue this conversation on the other side. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Obviously, the breaking news last night, General Qassem Soleimani, or as I called him, Salami, he was killed last night, ordered through, the direction of the President of the United States. But I do want to play this audio before we get to the phone calls at 257-5396. This was Donald Trump 7 years ago in regards to the situation in Iran when President Barack Obama was president.
I believe in strength, but to start a war in order to get elected, and I believe that's going to happen, would be an outrage.
Okay, so if it is an outrage, what is the difference between 7 years ago and today? That is the question I posed to some of our listeners. Do you agree or disagree with this? Let's go right to the phone calls, and let's start off with Paul. Paul, you are first up on the Vegas Take. Thank you so much for calling in. Paul, what is on your mind?
Hey, Paul.
Well, first of all, you're asking if this action will save American lives, and I can tell you what, it absolutely will. If not stateside, it'll save our service personnel that are serving over there, because instead of telling them to holster their weapon and take cover, they're going to be able to fight back.
Well, I hope you're right, Paul.
So that's absolutely.
Obviously, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Paul, but I don't think we know that 100%. That's what I'm worried about. We don't know that 100%.
Well, I served. I was an operations.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Navy.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. And I think, what's different between what President Trump said back then? I mean, how many lives were lost from then to now? That's one thing that's different. Another thing that's different is President Trump's numbers are not plummeting. They're up. They're going up. They're not going down.
Well, that's debatable.
But it doesn't really matter. I mean, at some point, just as an analogy, if you went outside to your car every morning and your neighbor slapped you in the face, and you called the police, and the police said, well, we didn't see him do it, so next time he does it, go ahead and take action.
Yes.
That's basically what's happening. You're going to take action eventually. You can't be a punching bag forever, especially when we know we could win a war with them, and that's not the point.
Yeah,
the point is you can only take so much, and if it doesn't just make it, besides our people getting killed, it makes us look weak to the rest of the world. And sometimes you got to flex your muscle.
Listen, Paul, I'm not Mr. Anti-War. And by the way, I appreciate the call and I appreciate your service to this country. I'm not Mr. Anti-War. I'm not one of those guys. But after the war in Iraq, I think we need to be a little careful. That's all I'm saying. And I think it's okay to be skeptical, and that's what I am. I'm skeptical. Why did we never go after Yasser Arafat after all those years? Why did we find Osama bin Laden with a pellet gun and a candy bar in a hole? He was not a threat to this country. There were no weapons of mass destruction. I believe, personally, it is fair to be skeptical.
Wait, if Osama bin Laden orchestrated 9/11, you don't think he was a threat to this country?
What do you mean? Of course he was a threat to this country. When did I say Osama bin Laden was not a threat to the country? Of course he was a threat to this country.
You just said he wasn't.
Osama bin Laden?
That's what you said.
Oh, then I misspoke. I was speaking in regards to Saddam Hussein.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay.
If I said that, I misspoke. Okay. Obviously, Osama bin Laden was the man responsible for 9/11, so I would never make that statement. I misspoke. I was speaking in regards to Saddam Hussein. 257, thank you for clearing that up for me.
Absolutely.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Ron. Ron, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, what's up, Ron?
Hey, Brian. How are you? I haven't spoken to you in a while, my brother.
I'm doing good, my friend. What's on your mind?
Listen, I wanted to bring to your attention two aspects. Number one, progressionally, God, I can't even remember her name now. Pelosi, first of all, believed that she should have been briefed. Secondly, as far as you are concerned, you're not on either side, and I've studied some of your I did some research on some of the things that you've said, and I've found that you were correct. But anyway, let me move on. With Pelosi, most of the people, on her side, the liberals, this surely would have been out there. Okay, he would have known what was going on. We wouldn't have got that general. That's number one. Number two, you said that you kind of took Geraldo's side.
I did.
Brother, I think you're way smarter than Geraldo, and I know that you don't like him, but I wouldn't even defend him because the second Iraq war, okay, he gave away our position, and that's so dangerous. And why they didn't end up charging that man, it is beyond me because
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned,
yeah,
he's an undercover Democrat.
Oh, Ron,
liberal.
Ron,
He's
let
not,
me just
he's not even the Kennedy.
Let me explain to you. No, I understand what
Go
you're
ahead.
saying, Ron. Let me just explain to you real quickly why I took Geraldo Rivera's side. And by the way, I appreciate the phone call, Ron. In regards to Geraldo, okay, Brian Kilmeade came on this show a few weeks ago. I think he's a nice guy. I enjoyed having him on. He was promoting his book. I think he does a good show. Just like Brian Kilmeade, I never served this country. And my first concern, and your first concern, quite frankly, should be American lives, and that includes soldiers. And I didn't sense any concern from Brian Kilmeade. His response to Geraldo is, nope, we got to go. And if we get into a war, we get into a war. We got to go. We got to go. Guess what? That's not the way I think, and that's not the way Americans should think. This is about saving American lives. Thousands of Iraqi soldiers, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died in the war in Iraq. Thousands of American soldiers died. At what cost? For what? So that we could see Saddam Hussein get hung? Was he a threat to this country? And that is my concern. I remember those images of our soldiers dying in Iraq. I don't want that to happen again. 257-5396.
I think Saddam Hussein was a threat to this country's economy, Brian.
Okay, well, I mean, my opinion doesn't change. I don't want thousands of our soldiers dying on a lie, and that's what the weapons of mass destruction was. Could this be a lie? Maybe, maybe not. I hope I'm wrong. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to L. L, you're next on the Vegas Take. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind, L?
Hey, what's up, L?
L, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No problem.
I listen to the radio and to you.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. My thing is this. You have every right to be skeptical. When you've got a president who lies about everything, how do you believe him when he says something this serious? And he hides all these things even from Congress.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, okay, I just don't believe anything he says, and I think we're going to find out. Look at Afghanistan. We just got the news that all of this was lies and mishandled. I think this is going to be the same thing, but this president has something up his sleeves. He's a liar. He's going to destroy. The Middle East now is in an uproar because of his actions and his decisions. This is disturbing. But, I appreciate your opinions.
Thank you. I want to also, Elle, I appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
Interesting boy who cried wolf take on that.
Well, you know what? Elle is echoing the same sentiment where Michael Avenatti, who tweeted out today, and I think I'm where Michael Avenatti stands on this issue. He said, I'm not buying that General Soleimani was plotting to kill thousands of Americans, and that's why he was killed. I believe it is completely fabricated, like the weapons of mass destruction Iraq claim, but worse. The administration lies at every turn about everything. Why should we believe them now? That's why I'm saying it's okay to be skeptical. 257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Anthony. Anthony, you are next on the Vegas Take. What is on your mind?
What's up, Anthony?
How you guys doing?
Good.
I think this is Fallujah and that cleric all over again. I think that we have a Shia general who's responsible for a militia in Iraq that's our best fighting machine right now. That general has killed more ISIS and al-Qaeda fighters than we ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now this is our enemy, is our enemy, is our friend type of thing right now.
Yeah.
So once again, this president has taken the Sunni Muslims over the Shia government in Iraq. Right now, the Iraqi government is discussing a law to have our military removed out of their country because of this.
Yeah.
Right? A government leader was killed along with this Shia general.
Right.
I don't get it. I mean, people, are you paying attention? Our worst day in Iraq was Fallujah.
Right.
We lost 144 Marines in one day.
You're right. Yeah,
right?
we did.
Because of a damn. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because of
so Anthony, you're kind of saying history in a way is repeating itself. Then is that what I'm getting?
Over,
yeah.
I mean, people look at. Just pay attention.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was with the government of Iraq.
Yeah.
And was killed last night. And I don't agree with him. I don't like him. I think he's an enemy of our country.
Of course.
But believe me, he's killed more ISIS and al-Qaeda fighters than anybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to tell you.
We're stuck again.
Yeah, Anthony, listen, that is a very valid point you make, and I think we both hope that you're wrong. But if you're right, and if history is repeating itself again, then we're going to look back at this decision. It's interesting how Donald Trump withdraws troops from Syria, right? We don't talk about that. He withdraws these troops from Syria, which many Republicans, even idiots who've sold their soul like Lindsey Graham, were against it, right? Good old Lindsey. Everybody was against that withdrawing of troops in Syria, and Donald Trump says he wants to end these wars. He wants to protect these troops. Well, is he protecting these troops with the actions that took place last night? I think that is a more than fair question to ask. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Chuck. Chuck, you are next on the Vegas Take. What do you make of this?
Yeah, the Dems and the media say he didn't strike, they say, why didn't you strike? So
no, not true. Not true.
It's only two things: either retaliate or.
Okay, but Chuck, to be fair, he's been president for 2 years. Have you ever heard me say on this show, why didn't he strike? Have I ever uttered those words?
I'm talking about the media.
Well, I am the media. I do a talk show.
Well, okay, then and then I think he's preventing a war.
No, but you said, why does he cower? Why does he kiss the ass of Vladimir Putin? Why does he kiss the ass of Kim Jong-un?
That is a far difference between going on a stage with Vladimir Putin and agreeing with him and being buddy-buddy and then going to war. There is a far difference between that and going to war.
Do you want him to go to war with Putin? Is that it?
No, when did I say that? That's absurd. When did I ever say I wanted him to go to war?
Well, there's only two things: either trade with them or
No, there's not only two things. Excuse me, but I disagree with you. When you get on a stage and when Vladimir Putin is asked if he interfered in our elections and he says no, and then Donald Trump stands right beside him on a world stage and says, I believe you over the CIA. When he stands on a stage, in just speaking with Kim Jong-un and asked about the Otto Warmbier death, and he says he believes Kim Jong-un when Kim Jong-un says, I feel really bad about that and I had nothing to do with it. No, there is an in-between there. You don't have to kiss the ass of these evil, murderous dictators or go to war. There are not two choices. There are ways of handling these situations. Am I saying?
Okay, what would you have done?
If Vladimir Putin was on a stage and said he didn't interfere? This thing? Well, certainly time will tell, but I'll tell you this. I probably would have notified Congress first. I probably would have spoken to a few more people than Mike Pompeo. I probably would have spoken to a few more people, and it probably wouldn't have been an impulse decision. I'll tell you that. I hope Donald Trump was right. Let me be clear. I hope this was the right decision to make. All I'm trying to say is he makes impulse decisions. And what I want to know is exactly what the threat was. Now, I don't have the information, perhaps, that Donald Trump had. And I hope that information was a real, serious threat, Chuck. But the point I'm trying to make is he makes impulsive decisions, and I really hope he didn't make a mistake here. As all Americans, we should feel that way. 702-257-5396 is the number to call.
Chuck.
Let's go to Richard. Richard, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't think Trump is trying to start a active shooting war. I think that I also don't necessarily believe that there's an imminent major terrorist attack. I think his purpose in this was to further destabilize Iran and take out a major enemy, which this guy was.
And I don't think he wanted another Benghazi on his hands.
I think he knows if he did get us in a major shooting war that lasted longer than a week, then he'd lose the election. So
can I ask you a question, Richard?
I think he wants to take Iran down.
So let me ask you a question, Richard. If that was the case, why is it that Pompeo is echoing and the administration is echoing something completely different than what you were just saying? Pompeo is saying that this man was planning attacks against Americans, killing Americans. They're not saying what you're saying. So are you saying that Pompeo was lying?
Yeah, very possibly, because they need to I'm sure they feel that they need to give the public a story that they can believe, that something like that is too nuanced,
right?
And it sounds too much like regime change, which they want to see the theocracy in Iran overthrown. They're a terrible enemy of ours, and the people don't want them. But he can't. I don't think they believe they can just come out and say that. So I think this is basically a way to further increase pressure and make it more likely that the people will overthrow the theocracy in Iran.
And listen, I haven't heard that from a lot of people, and you very well might be right on that. It's sad that we live in a day and age where Pompeo can't stand up there in front of the media and tell the truth. I think that is sad, but you might be right.
I mean,
and we've never been that country where they do that. I mean, they've told us stories all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Both
weapons of mass destruction. Well, you're right.
You're saying it's sad we live in an age when Pompeo can go up there as if he's lying, as if he's not telling the truth.
Well, that's what Richard is saying. He's not telling the truth.
He's saying, in his opinion, he doesn't think he's telling the truth. You're saying that you don't think he's telling the truth. I think he's telling the truth because this guy has a track record, and I don't think this is a desperate ploy for Trump to try to quote-unquote win the election.
He has a track record of kissing the ass of the president of the United States. I agree with you're not talking about that track record.
I'm talking about Qassem Soleimani.
Pompeo wears the Donald Trump knee pads.
I'm talking about Qassem Soleimani.
I understand what you're saying. I understand. I'm just saying he also does have a track record of kissing the president's ass.
Who was instrumental in bombing the U.S. Embassy last week.
Richard, let me be very clear, Richard. I don't have a problem with what you just said. If that is the case, it makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is that they're saying that this guy was planning an attack on Americans, but they refuse to give any specifics. So, Richard, I think you're onto something, and I think what you're saying might be correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the call, Richard.
Good call, Richard.
Thank you very much. 702.
Hey, when have you heard specifics ever when it comes to an attack?
Well, how about the war in Iraq? Remember what they said? They said they actually went into details about the weapons of mass destruction that they thought that Saddam Hussein had. They went into specific details. They also, hold on, you asked the question, I'm answering it. They went into all the facilities that they believed that Saddam Hussein had, even to where they thought these weapons of mass destruction were.
That.
They didn't find it.
I understand, but as far as the actual attacks, where the bombs are going to be, what U.S. targets are going to be shot at.
We don't need those specifics, but here's what we need.
That's exactly what you're asking for.
No, that's not. I'll tell you what I'm asking for. I want to know not exactly where these attacks were, but were they planning on attacking America? Were they planning a terrorist attack in this country? Were they planning to go after American soldiers?
And again, CNN. Let's keep in mind, CNN said that Soleimani was planning more attacks against American interests.
Okay, but that's way too vague. We need more information. We need more specifics. 702.
And they had specific intel indicating that.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Dylan. Dylan, you are next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
What's up, Dylan?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I just got a couple of points.
Sure.
The first one just came to me. If he had told Nancy and Chucky, that would have ripped over to CNN in a heartbeat, the leakers. So, but
I don't care about the okay, but hold on. Let me respond to that, and then I'll let you make your point. I'll gladly do that. I don't care about the media. I don't care what the media is saying. Here's what I care about. I care about all of our politicians, or certainly the most prominent ones, getting the information and then making the correct decision that hopefully is not political. I don't care what Fox News and MSNBC is saying. I care about our American soldiers.
Brian, this is one of those things that a president does occasionally, is a certain strike with the help of the Pentagon. It's just not just Trump. He is the ultimate guy that has the pen that signs it to go.
But the Pentagon is saying that this was at the direction of the President of the United States.
The Pentagon is who gave him the information. It's not like Trump came up and said, hey, let's kill this guy.
But again,
they said, hey, here's this guy. This guy's a rapist as well as a murderer. No one gets that point. He's a top rapist.
So why didn't we go after Yasser Arafat for decades then?
That's another story. I don't know about this guy's beyond him. No,
why did it take us so long to get Osama bin Laden?
I'm not that knowledgeable like you, Brian, about that stuff, but I just wanted to make a main comment.
Okay.
It's kind of a chess game.
Okay.
Okay, this is really short. Trump, you can see the Iraqi government, because all these brothers back there in that country, their Brotherhood of Islamic, they all cover each other, and they're all tied in, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So the government is going to, in a couple of days, probably vote that the Americans get the hell out of here. And Trump, you and I both know, he'll be the last man to say, oh, no, we're going to stay. He will gladly leave, and he will have won his chess game to get the hell out of Iraq. And if it happens, Brian, I'm going to call you next week, and we're going to have a cigar.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. If it's to save one American life, let alone dozens, hundreds, thousands of soldiers, Dylan, I will absolutely smoke that cigar with you. 702-257-5396, as long as it's a Swisher and it's cherry flavored. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Emmett. Emmett, you are next on the Vegas Take. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Emmett?
Hey, good morning. It's beautiful in Las Vegas today. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, so first of all, I'm very proud of the president. I don't need to know the information within less than 24 hours. Like, let's calm down with all the craziness, because first of all, a handful of people died and we took out one of the world's deadliest and biggest threats. We should be proud of that. We should be thanking our president. The facts will fall. We can criticize him if it comes out that he made a big effing mistake. But for now, right now, we saw this guy in Baghdad.
Can I ask you a question? No, Emmett, I get your point. Emmett, I get your point. There's a lot of people that feel the way you feel. So let me ask you a question. When George W. Bush announced that he was invading Iraq, he was going after Saddam Hussein, were you echoing the same sentiment?
Hey, look, you always come at us conservatives and say, stop bringing up Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Why are you going back in time?
Please answer hold on a second. It's my show, not yours. I just asked you a question. Please answer it, sir, with all due respect. I'm going to ask it one more time, and I'm giving you a chance to answer it. When George W. Bush announced that he was going to war in Iraq, by the way, the reason why I didn't bring up Obama, because he didn't start a war, by the way. George W. Bush announced, we're going to go after Osama bin Laden. He has weapons of mass destruction. Were you echoing the same sentiment you are this morning? Please answer the question, sir.
Yeah, I was a lot younger then, and absolutely, though, I want to believe.
So you were wrong then. So you were wrong.
Yeah, and guess what? War is.
So you could be wrong now then. So it is possible that. So it could be possible that you're wrong again this morning. Can you admit that?
Yeah, That's absolutely possible.
Okay.
But it's like it could be right or wrong. Like we could debate that all day.
Okay, but
right
you don't
now,
want to hear the
going
details. You don't want. But here's okay.
No.
But you have a
Here's
bad.
What you don't want to hear is the fact that this guy was supporting Hamas, Hezbollah.
What did I?
He's already
Were you
got
listening the first
killed
5 minutes?
hundreds of
Excuse me.
Americans.
Excuse me. Were you listening to the first 5 minutes of the show? Or did you have wax in your ears, right-wing wax? Well, okay, well, let me explain it to you once again. This guy was an evil murderess. I'm going to call him a dictator. He harbored terrorists. He killed Americans. I said at the start of the show, not only did I say I'm glad. Hold on a second.
You can call him a warlord.
Not only did I say I'm glad he's dead, I said I hope he suffered a painful death.
Which he
so
did.
Don't you call in and give me this garbage that I'm not happy that this guy's dead. You're damn right I'm happy he's dead.
I'll tell you this, Brian. You know, you know how they identified him?
That's not what I meant. You cut me off, and that's not what I meant. What I was trying to make is the point is that I agree with the decision. So you just need to know you've got friends here in Las Vegas who disagree with you on this.
That's
but
okay.
I love your show.
That's
Look,
okay.
Here's the deal. This guy was in Baghdad. I want to hear you talk about that. Why was he in Baghdad, within 24 hours after the embassy is raided?
Well,
we took an opportunity to make a
yes.
smart strike when
Yes.
the iron was hot.
Yes.
We're not starting a war. We're protecting
Well,
Americans.
Emmett, let me be clear.
I hope Trump
I understand,
strikes,
Emmett, and I appreciate your kind words, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing, but let me be very clear on this. I hope you are right, and I hope I am wrong. I can honestly say that on the radio right now, Emmett. I hope the president made the right decision because I care about this country and I care about our very brave men and women in uniform. Emmett, I appreciate the phone call. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing, but I had to bring up the Iraq War. 257
Good call, Emmett. And you know what, Brian? You talk about how you hoped he died in a very, very gruesome type of fashion.
I do.
They identified him by his ring, and his red ring only because
I saw that image,
a missile went right through his body.
I wish he died a painful death, though. That was probably immediate.
It separated all of his bones. He was definitely dead immediately.
This SOB killed American lives, and he was responsible for a lot of innocent people dying, and that's why I say that. So
here's a question. Let's talk about the payment that Obama made to Iran, the $1.5 billion payment Obama made to Iran.
What does it have to do with what took place last night?
Considering how in Qassem Soleimani was with the high-end government in Iran, do you think that he received any of that money?
So you're saying that you believe Osama bin Laden wanted to pay off terrorists and kill innocent people?
I'm talking about Barack Obama.
Okay, well,
who made a cash payment to Iran.
All right, well, if you want to talk about cash,
do you think that Soleimani?
Okay, I'll respond by saying this. If you want to talk about cash payments that to me are irrelevant to what took place last night, what about the $120,000 payment that he made to Stormy Daniels? Do you want to talk about that too? Because to me, they're both irrelevant to what took place last night. I understand you disagree with that. Listen, I'm with you. I didn't like that payment either, JD. I didn't like the fact that he paid off this country that has harbored terrorists. I agree with you, but the point I'm trying to make is it had nothing to do with last night. That's all I'm trying to say.
And there's a giant difference in the two presidencies here. One of our presidents
is an orange liar. Yeah.
No, one of the presidents
I'm sorry. Okay.
Pays countries like Iran $1.5 billion in cash. The other one, when attacked, even a small attack on our U.S. embassy responds.
I do agree.
Over the top.
I do agree. There definitely is a difference.
An international warlord.
One of our presidents is a good father and husband, and one of our presidents has several ex-wives and pays people to have unprotected sex with porn stars. So you're right. There certainly is a difference. 257-5396. Let's go to Brady. Brady, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
What's up, Brady?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen, and Lieutenant Shapiro. I guess you guys all know what the military is doing over in Iraq and
First of all, I'm not a lieutenant. I never said I was, and I praise anyone.
Sure act like it.
Whoa. What do you mean I sure act like it? Don't you give me that crap. Excuse me.
Let me just go. Let's rewind 2 weeks ago, Brian. Let's go back 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, let's rewind to another dumb call when you called into the show. Sure, go ahead.
Hang on, Lieutenant. 2 weeks ago.
Don't call me lieutenant. Excuse me. You know what? I'll give you a chance to talk. Don't call me a lieutenant. I've never served, okay? I never claimed to have served, so don't be a dummy, okay?
Brian. But let's go back 2 weeks ago. When our military went over there and took out the 24 Hezbollah members or 25, did you have a problem with that? Did you have a problem with our military taking in people out? Because that's when Iran responded and took over the embassy and raided the embassy in Iraq.
I'll tell you what I have a problem with.
Took out the Hezbollah members that were funded by Obama, and don't tell me that money that was left on the tarmac never went to Hezbollah. You're an idiot if you don't think that.
Okay, well, please send me an email and send me proof of that. Number one. Number two, I'll tell you what I have. I'll tell you what I have. No, you wake up. No, you wake up. You wake up, and let me tell you. No.
Muslims in the Brotherhood.
Okay, you wake up and let me explain to you something. Here's what I always talk about in this show. I have a problem with starting an ill-advised war. Do you remember the Iraq War, which I notice you don't bring up, but you bring up Barack Obama because you're a right-wing buffoon. Have a nice day, Brady. And don't call me a lieutenant. I'm not a lieutenant. Just like I call you a doofus. You're Lieutenant Doofus. You call into the show all the time, and you're a right-wing buffoon. You defend Donald Trump. You're a racist, and you call into the show all the time. You're misogynistic. You've said some horrible things on this show. Don't call me a lieutenant. I've never said I've served. I commend the people that serve this country honorably, that are heroes. And guess what, Brady? You're the opposite of that, because they have more honor in their pinky than you have in your whole body.
Call him Sergeant Shap.
Yeah. I'll call him Brady the buffoon. 257-5396 is the number to call. I believe I have about 30 seconds, Carl. I apologize, but I'm going to try to take your call. Carl, go ahead. Got about 30 seconds for you.
I take
what's
your
up, Carl?
apology. Listen, Trump said that he's sending the troops in because he heard that they're going to be killing Americans. Well, they're going to kill American soldiers, obviously. And my final point.
I hope not, Carl.
Well,
I hope
they
you're wrong.
are. I'm sure some will. Guy, probably. I hope not.
Yep.
But the main point is...
Quickly, I got 10 seconds.
Part. Okay, real dangerous part. Is Trump, his calls to Putin and Putin's calls to him are not transcribed, not kept anywhere.
No, that's a good point, Carl. Carl, I'm sorry, I'm up against a hard break. You're right, and we'll talk about more of that. Coming up next, John Buchagan from Infinity the Math Institute. We'll be right back after this.